And you're now live.
Okay, welcome parents and welcome back to a new school term, a new school year. And thank you so much for sending your lovely children into school today. We've had such a great day seeing them all. And in fact, with year 9, of course, welcoming them to the new building, to the Westcombe Park building. So it's been a double thing for us today, because normally we would be welcoming them and showing them around the whole school. Whereas today we were welcoming them back and just showing them the zone that they're going to be allowed in the first instance. But I have to say, it was really joyful to hear voices out in the playground, to see children along corridors, and just to feel that the work that we have all done over the last few months to prepare the school for this return is now being tested by the children, and it's such a joy to have them back in school. So today for the children was about an induction. We've had a few days of inducting staff, helping them to understand what we've done to try and make the school as safe as possible. And today, what we were doing with the students was the same with them. So they were being lined up quite a lot, and they were being walked slowly through to various places that they needed to go. And that's been really important for us, because it helps us to test whether the plans that we had on paper are going to work, and it gives them an opportunity and the staff an opportunity to walk through them in real time. So what I'm hoping is that your children will have come home this evening and talked about the fact that they're really pleased to be back, and they've met various friends they haven't seen for ages, and it was nice to talk to various teachers, but also that they will have told you how carefully we have thought through the ways in which we can make the school as safe as possible. And Luke, who's the director of Raising Standards for years 9, 10 and 11, is going to talk you through in much greater detail some of our ambition for the children academically, but also the details around how we want to keep them safe. And we thought it was really important tonight to find a way of talking to you about what we're doing and letting you know the kind of routines and the expectations that we've got for your children that are slightly different from anything we've had last year. And even this whole medium of doing this is a bit unusual and a bit new and a bit strange for us, but I hope you're finding this useful. But it is important that you're able to know what we're doing so that you can support some of the things that you might think sound a bit strange. Why on earth have they got to keep going back in the playground before they go to lessons? Well, that's about us making sure that year groups are not passing each other and having contact with each other. So the way we've organised the school is into zones, and Luke will talk to you about that. And to a large extent, the children are going to be staying in a single classroom or just moving between 1 or 2 classrooms. The teachers are doing a lot of the movement. But of course, they will still need to go out to break. They will still need to have their lunch. They will still need to move. And at those movement times, where it is much more difficult for us to keep socially distant from the students in the way we need to, what we are asking you to do is to make sure that your child is wearing a mask, all the staff are wearing masks, and that is just to reduce the possibility of transmission at those times when we're much closer together. Now, what we have noticed over the last couple of days, of course, is that not many of us, adults and children, are that used to wearing masks. It's a new thing, and many of us aren't getting it right all of the time. So we thought that if we went through with you about some of the things that we want, then maybe together we can get that right. So it is really important, if we're wearing masks, that we're wearing them properly. And some of the things that we've been enforcing with the children is that wearing it properly means it's covering your nose and your mouth. So all too often it's easy just to sling it around your mouth so you can still breathe properly, but there's no point in doing that. So it's about covering both the mouth and the nose. That means it isn't about wearing a face mask like an earring dangling from your ear, or keeping your chin in place or something like that, or even a couple I saw today wore as hats. That isn't what we want, and that isn't going to keep us safe. So we're going to be constantly reinforcing with the adults and the children about the proper wearing of masks. It's also important that the masks are kept as clean as possible, which is why we ask you to send your child in with a small little bag that they can put their mask into. So it's important, therefore, that they are not constantly touching their masks and fiddling with them. Those masks need to be on, they need to be comfortable, and they need to stay there while they are moving around the building. But that's only for 2 or 3 minutes at a time. Once a child is in the classroom and sat down and facing the front, then it is perfectly acceptable for that mask to come off, because then they are literally just facing the front. And the teachers will take their masks off as well, and the teachers will be maintaining 2 meters distance between themselves and the children. So that is what we're expecting. So just a request, please send your child in with a mask. Please make sure they've got a little bag to put it in when they're not wearing it. And please do what you can to reinforce the proper wearing of masks, because those are the messages that we are giving as well. We know it's a new habit, and we know that new habits take a while to settle in, but that's our request to you. So tonight we're going to spend about half an hour or so just going through some of our new routines, but also talking to you about our high academic expectations for your children. While Luke is doing that, I'm actually going to duck behind the screen over here and sit at my computer, because there is an opportunity for you to type in questions onto your computers. I can keep an eye on those during the meeting. While you're talking, I'll be making a note of those questions. And then at the end, I will return here, and between us, we will approach those questions. And Miss Causa is also online, so I'm hoping that she will be able to join us and also answer some of those questions. So, Mr. Thomas, Luke, I'm going to pass over to you now, Director of Raising Standards for years 9, 10 and 11. I'm going to go and look at the questions. I'm going to ask parents to please ask us lots of questions. If we can't answer them tonight, then I'll look to answer them online or in my newsletter on Friday. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Ms. Smith. Good evening all, and thank you very much for attending this presentation. My role primarily will be focusing on the attainment of our students throughout years 9, 10, and 11, and ensuring that where any student may fall behind, that I'm able to get them back to where we, beg your pardon, are able to get them back to where they should be. Right. The first presentation slide I'd like to discuss with you is what we call the iceberg illusion. Whenever we see an iceberg in the sea or on a picture, we see the part of the iceberg that protrudes out of the water. At all times, that's usually the smallest part of the iceberg. The vast majority of the iceberg in its volume is below the water. And that's what students see. They see success as being something that just happens, or not just students, the vast majority of people actually. They see the end product. What they don't see too often are all the good habits, the dedication, the tenacity, the failures, the persistence, the sacrifices that have to be made for that success to take place. And in speaking to the Year 9s this morning in assembly, I wanted them to start thinking already about that journey over the next 3 years, because their GCSEs for a number of subjects will start this year, and they can start laying those foundations for future years starting now. It's about developing those good habits now. It's about putting in that hard work now. And it's the old saying, the only place you're going to find success before work is in the dictionary. If you don't put the work in, then the success is not going to arrive. That being said, the attainment of students in the John Rowan School has been on an upward trend over the last 3 years or so. If we look back at 2018, the attainment score that we got was 36.3. And that means on average, students left just below grade 4 when they left the school. In 2019, it was 40.1 as our score, which means that on average, students left about a grade 4. And in 2020, this year, our most recent results, it was just under 47, which means that students, when they left school, on average, they left with grades just below a grade 5. If we then look at the bottom row for attendance, what we can see is an upward trend in attendance, which is therefore having a positive impact on attainment. In 2018, the attendance was just above 89%. In 2019, it was just above 93%. And in 2020, it was above 94%. So we can clearly see as the attendance is improving, as children are coming to school more often, their attainment, which is basically their grades, their GCSE grades, are also improving. Your child's year group at the beginning of lockdown last year was 93.7%, which normally, you know, would be a little bit of a concern. But as I said to the year group this morning, it's not about what has occurred last year. We're going to forget all about that as best as we can, and we're going to move forward and learn lessons from it. And their GCSEs and futures start now, and if they're able to do all that we are asking of them, then obviously we're going to see some positive results. Just to contextualize what I've just mentioned, the minimum attendance that we are asking for, which is a national requirement, is about 95%. And as you can see, anyone below 90% is what we consider to be a student with persistent absentee. If your attendance is 90% over that school year, then you have missed a total of 4 weeks, so 1 month of that child's education. That will be hugely detrimental to their progress, to their learning, and that year's attendance may have a negative impact on their future attendance. 80%, it then becomes 2 months of school that's missing. And even someone with an attendance figure of 96%, which, you know, as far as I'm concerned, is absolutely fantastic and is excellent, but they've missed a week and a bit of school, a week and a half almost of school. Now, that week and a half, it may be that something was taught on that day that comes up on the exam paper and may have an impact on their attainment. So it's vitally important that where possible, students come to school at all times. We do understand that there may be occasions where they're not in, but barring obviously the COVID stuff, which I'll speak about in a minute, do send them in. We will assess, and if necessary, we will then contact you and send them home. If we look at the progress of students this year, this is the class of 2020, using their Pride scores. You should be familiar with Pride scores from student reports, terminal reports that would have been sent home. The Pride score is made up of a number of metrics such as attendance to school, punctuality to school and lessons, and the child's attitude to learning, to name but a few. What we can clearly see is students with higher attainment, higher Pride scores make more progress. Students with lower Pride score make less progress. So someone with a Pride score of 9, for instance, is more likely to achieve a grade and a bit above what their target grade is. So if their target grade was a 5, they're probably going to get a 6 or higher. If their target grade was a 6, they're probably going to get a 7 or higher. Whereas someone with a Pride score of 1, which is the lowest Pride score that you can attain, they on average achieve nearly 2.5 grades below what their target grade is. So if their target grade was a 5, they're probably going to end up with a 3 or lower. These are not guarantees, but looking at last 3 years, 2018, 2019, and 2020, there is an extremely strong correlation between the Pride score a student receives and the GCSE results that we then see. That's progress, and the same trend is shown for attainment. A student with an attainment score of a 9 is likely to leave with straight grade 7s or higher. A student with an attainment score of 3 is likely to leave with grades 3 or 4. You know, so the higher your attainment, the higher your Pride score, the higher your grades, and the more progress you make, i.e., the higher the grade you get above your target grade. these are just a few of the selected students from the class of 2020 who've just left in terms of their progress. If we look at someone like Maliki at the top, his progress has been phenomenal. He's basically left achieving 3 grades higher than the grades he was targeted to achieve. Again, we can look at someone like Kelly, who for me is my student of the year, who has come from a very low base and has worked her socks off this year. And she's left having achieved 2 grades higher than the target grade that she was to get. And that's because she made sure she did everything she possibly could this year to do so. And there's no reason why any and all students can't do the same. That group of students are a mixed bunch. You know, there's an even number of males and females. There are several students on there who are free school meals and pure premium. There's no reason why students can't achieve, providing they obviously have that right attitude to learning. Again, these are just some selected students from the year group. I could have chosen so many others, and what you can see there is their hard work have paid off with the number of fantastic grades that they've achieved. They've been able to go off and do the courses that they wanted to do at the 6th form place that they wanted. Several have gone off to grammar school. Some are doing their international baccalaureate. Paradise, who has left with some absolutely brilliant grades, he has remained at the John Rowan School, and he's undertaking 4 A-levels at present, which is obviously what we want. We want our students to remain with us and continue their education because they know what they're going to get from us. Now, as I've mentioned earlier, I know we're 3 years away from the GCSEs, but the message I want to get across to you, just like I spoke to the Year 9 this morning, is it's all about getting into those good habits now. There's no point waiting until the GCSEs start, those final years, year 11s, for instance, to then start thinking, okay, I'm going to start doing all that I need to do. It starts now, getting those good habits now. And their behavior for learning is important, you know, making sure that they get to lessons on time, they're in lessons all the time, they have all the necessary equipment that they need, be pen, pencil, ruler, you know, revision books. They are focused in their lessons. They're not, you know, afraid to ask questions, you know, in case that they don't understand something. They are dedicated towards their studies, and by that I don't mean they have to go home and spend 5, 6, 7 hours in front of a computer or in a book, but when they get home, homework is a priority. They're not leaving their homework until the day before it is due, that it's getting completed. They are reflecting on their work that they've done on that particular day. All right, let me go back over what I did today. I didn't quite understand it, but I'm going to spend some time going back over it so that if I don't quite understand it again, I can then go back and speak to my teacher rather than just like, hey, I'm home leaving it, I'm going to get on the computer or do whatever in terms of playing games. And they're prepared to make sacrifices. And that's the big one. You know, that really, really is, you know, if they're not prepared to make sacrifices, then they're not going to make the progress, as much progress as we would want them to make. And it's a case of, okay, do I need to watch, you know, 3 hours of Netflix tonight, or can I, you know, get an hour or 2 of work done and then I'll reward myself once I've done it with Netflix or a computer game? Do I need to be on my phone 24/7, or can I put the phone somewhere else where it's not going to be distracting me and I can focus on getting my homework or my revision complete before going back to the phone? You know, it's all about those sort of things, making sacrifices to make sure that they get the best possible education they can while at school. Those things are going to enable your child to make the most progress and get the best possible grade, so that when it comes to a 6th form placement, they have a choice. And this is the big thing that I want to get across for this particular bit. Students want to make sure that the decision about which 6th form they go to and which courses they do at a 6th form is in their choice. And the only way they're going to do that is by making sure that they have all the necessary grades to do so. the last thing they want to do is to be able to want to go to a sixth form, but to be told by that sixth form establishment, no, you can't come here, you haven't got the grade, or no, you can't do that course, you have to do this. You know, who wants to do a course that they don't really want to do? And who wants to go somewhere they never really wanted to go? You're demotivated already in terms of those things. So you want to make sure that you get to where you want to get to and you do what you want. The sixth form at John Rowan this year has seen our results continue to improve massively, much like they did last year. The A star to B grades have doubled across the board, and as you can see, 85% of our students were able to go off and do the course that they wanted to do at the university that they wanted to do. And several of those universities were Russell Group universities. A Russell Group university is a university that's in the top 20 best universities in the country, being able to do the courses that they wanted to do. So it's all about making sure that they keep the decision theirs rather than someone else making a decision for them. And again, another great thing about this sixth form is that, you know, we're not a massive sixth form. You know, obviously we are growing, but we know the students that are here, we know what their needs are. We're able to put support in place for those students and personalize that support somewhat to enable them to flourish in making the step from Key Stage 4 into Key Stage 5, which is much more independent learning as well. So moving on to the health and safety aspect of this evening, which I know obviously some of you may have some anxieties around, and I do want to stress, you know, Miss Smith is very clear that the health and safety of students and staff is amongst our highest priority. And you know, from a lot of the stuff that we've done over the last few days, and that I will mention this evening, it's very clear to me and several others, including the students, that is the case. So I'll just mention the fact that obviously your child health and safety is our #1 priority. You would have received several documents from Miss Smith over the last few weeks in preparation for your child returning to school. And I just want to go through a few bits. I know Miss Smith has already spoken about the year group bubbles. No year group will mix at break or lunchtime. They just don't come across each other. In the mornings when students come in, if they choose to come in and go to the canteen for their breakfast, we have different tables which would have been disinfected and sanitized prior to their arriving, and then will again be disinfected and sanitized immediately upon them leaving. So each year group has their own specific areas in the canteen for them to have their breakfast, or they can take their breakfast outside. We have staggered starts in the morning and staggered starts at the end of school to minimize students mixing. All teachers in classrooms will be at least 2 meters away from students. This is very clearly marked out in each classrooms, where teachers and students have been informed in regards to areas that they can go within the classroom itself. Each building, the building has a designated entry and exit, so year 9s can only enter the building and exit the building via the canteen entrance. They're not permitted to use any other entry or exits in the school, so only that year group has use of that entry exit point, again to minimize any possible infection, which, you know, you can see from this map. There will be a clearer version of this on the school website, or probably coming out in the newsletter from Miss Smith on Friday. And as you can see, year 9s have the ground floor all to themselves. There are no other year groups at all being taught on the ground floor. And they have their own toilets, male and female toilets on the ground floor that they are able to use. And at the start of each day, at the end of break, and at the end of lunch, students are lined up in their groups and are then escorted back into the building by their tutor or their subject teacher. Again, this is to ensure that You know, it's a controlled entry back into the building. Everyone's got their mask on as we enter those communal areas, and that there's no possible mixing with other year groups, although the other year groups over in Westcombe Park will be in their lessons at those times, because no 2 year groups have break or lunch at the same time. Just a quick reminder in regards to the equipment that students need. Obviously, prior to COVID, students needed to bring their own equipment to school, but with the COVID protocols that we now have to follow, they are not permitted to share any form of equipment within their class. So they need to, and you need to ensure that they come into school fully equipped, you know, 2 pens, black, 2 green pens, you know, etc. The big change on that list is the glue, whereas teachers would usually give out a glue stick to be shared. We're not permitted to do that because of the possible link to cross-contamination. So you will need to ensure you have provided your child with a glue stick. Where your child has PE, they need to be in their John Rowan PE uniform, and they can wear it throughout the day. We have got contingency plans for if it rains heavily and they need to change and stuff like that. So rest assured, we're not going to say you've got to stay in sodden clothes for the day. There are plans in place for that. They need to wear their face mask as they transition in communal areas. And whenever they walk into a classroom, they sanitize their hands using the hand sanitizers that we have, or if they wish, they can use their own. At the end of that lesson, when they leave, they do the same thing again, and they're asked at break and lunchtime to wash their hands. It's vitally important that we obviously follow these protocols to ensure minimize any risk of possible infections within the school. I've spoken about the importance of attendance to school, and its significant, its positive link to attainment. However, we do know that there are going to be occasions, you know, where your child may not be able to come to school. What I would now like to spend some time doing is going through the national guidelines that all schools were sent by the Department for Education and Public Health England in regards to protocols that we absolutely have to follow. Now, if your child has any coronavirus symptoms, and I will go through some of the symptoms on the next slide, please do not send them to school. They will need to self-isolate. You will need to contact the school's attendance office to inform them of your child's absence and the reason for the absence, and you will need to arrange a test to be carried out for your child. If the test comes back as being negative, then your child can come back to school immediately. If the test comes back as being positive, then obviously you do not send the child to school. They will need to continue to self-isolate for a period of 10 days, and you will need to contact the school on a day-by-day basis, you know, informing us initially that it was a positive test and when you expect them to be back over that 10-day period. The guidelines are very, very, very clear that, you know, children can return to school even if they still have a cough or loss of sense of smell after that 10 days. So as long as the 10-day isolation period has passed, if they still have a cough or they still have their loss of sense of smell, which can sometimes, or taste, can take weeks to return, they can come back to school as long as they have undergone those 10 days. If a person in that child's household has coronavirus symptoms, then that child should not come to school. They should again self-isolate. The parent should contact the school's attendance officer, and a test should be carried out for that child. If the test comes back as being negative, the child immediately comes back to school. If the test comes back as being positive, and this is the difference between the previous one, obviously the child doesn't come to school, but this time it is a 14-day self-isolation period that the child must undergo. Parent obviously would contact their school attendance office, informing us of the absence and the reason for the absence as well. If the NHS Test and Trace have identified your child as being in close contact with someone who has symptoms or as a confirmed positive coronavirus diagnosis, then the child should not come to school. Again, you should contact the school's attendance office, and again, the child will have to undergo 14 days of self-isolation. Only after that 14-day isolation can the child come back to school. If you have gone on a holiday to a country that has undergone quarantine, and this is thinking obviously if it's over half term or something, and much like some people where they got caught out where the country was not on the quarantine list and then ended up on the quarantine list. If you've come back after that date, the child cannot come to school. You must follow the guidelines. You must keep your child at home for 14 days quarantine, and it's only after that 14-day period can that child return to school. If your child has been signaled as being needing to shield, if we undergo a local lockdown, you will be sent a letter by the government informing you that your child needs to shield. Please obviously keep your child at home in that scenario. Contact the school, provide the letter for us. Work will be provided for your child. They won't miss out. We will have some recorded lessons via Microsoft Teams that we can share. We have a lot of the online provisions that we can use, such as Seneca, Evelina in English, Hegety in maths, Show My Homework. There are a lot of resources that we will ensure that your child is provided with to ensure that they don't miss out on their education. But obviously they will need to shield for their own health and safety. But that's only in the case of a local lockdown, and you will be provided with that letter via your GP if and when the case is necessary. Now, in terms of the symptoms for coronavirus that we need to be aware of, and I'm sure you are all aware of these already, but I do need to reiterate them, particularly as we are going to the cold and flu season. Now, in terms of a temperature, you will know if a child has a high temperature because they're very, very hot to the touch. And it's usually the chest and back that you will feel, and it's a continued high temperature. You don't necessarily need to have a thermometer to measure it. You will know because they're almost burning. If a child is like that, then obviously they will need to be kept at home and undergo a test. If your child develops a new or continuous cough, and the signs you're asked to look out for where they're coughing repeatedly over an hour, or they have 3 or more coughing episodes in a 24-hour period, and it's a prolonged coughing episode that you are after rather than, the occasional cough like that, so we need to be very clear. If they've lost their sense of smell or sense of taste, that's usually another one of the symptoms for us to be aware of. Please keep them at home in that case and get them tested before sending them into school. There are several other symptoms. Obviously, like I said, you can look on Public Health England for more details around the guidelines and protocols that we have to follow. Because the last thing that we want as a school to happen is for us to be sending home any year groups, or touch wood, obviously we're never going to go there with the school having to close. We want students to be in school. We know how important it is for their education, them being here, and as great as we were last year with the online lessons, nothing beats face-to-face teaching where the teacher is actively in the room to support the learning of students. In terms of what you're going to see in your child's class books, you need to make sure they have a bag, which is part of the equipment, a bag that they're able to carry books home in on a day-by-day basis. No books can be left in school, so they will need to take in and bring home their exercise books on a day-by-day basis. Now, it's very, very important that they plan for this and organize. So the night before, I would suggest they have their bags packed, ready for the following morning with everything that they will need in there. What you will see within their books is you're going to see much less red pen marking from the teacher, if any, to be quite honest with you, in their exercise books. But you will see much more green pen and much more purple pen for peer and self assessments. You're going to see a lot more assessments being done online rather than in books or on paper, because it's a much safer way, and we're obviously going to continue. I've mentioned earlier Hegarty Maths for maths, Hegarty Maths for maths. Evelina is another software that English are going to use. Seneca, the enhanced version, we used it for science last year, but there's an enhanced version that the school has paid for, which covers a lot more subjects, is also going to be available for your child to use, as well as, you know, Show My Homework and Teams. And we will also be providing your child, I do believe they received them today, mini whiteboards with mini whiteboard pens and mini whiteboard rubbers. So there's a quick and easy way for us to assess students in lesson. That is their own individual whiteboard, mini whiteboard for them to take from one lesson to the next, and also take home in their bags so that they have it as and when they require it. Finally, I just want to reiterate the school uniform policy, having met the Year 9s for the first time today. 99.9% of them were immaculately turned out. So thank you very, very much for that. The uniform was fantastic. We just need to obviously ensure that everyone is also doing the same. So there shouldn't be any black trainers or any trainers for that matter. We do understand that there are some issues around the blazers, the green blazers from some of the suppliers. Where that is the case, please can you provide a note to your child, for your child even, with a day as to when you expect delivery. Likewise, if you're waiting for shoes to be delivered, again, please provide a note for your child to be able to do so. And particularly for the female students, they need to wear tailored trousers. That's trousers that are a little bit baggy, so to speak, and not this skinny fit or short-legged versions which almost look like leggings. You know, they're not permitted to wear those in school. I know they are sometimes advertised as school uniform in certain sections of shops, but they're not school uniform at the John Rowan School. So please can you ensure that your child is very well turned out. And that is the end of my presentation to you. Now I'm going to hand over to some questions.
You would not believe how many questions these Year 9 parents have asked. I've been tapping away. Thank you very much. Really informative and really useful. So I know we've got Miss Causer online as well, and I'll do my best to answer some of them. But there's a question here, Mr. Thomas, around children with underlying health conditions. What regard will we have to their sensitivities in this particular situation?
Yeah, no, obviously we understand that we're somewhat tied to government guidelines where they expect students to still be in school. Now, those children, what we would do is obviously, if necessary, we would have an individual risk assessment for them if they're high risk, but wearing a mask at all times around school would be something that's quite easy for them to do. Not being too close amongst their peers, keeping their social distance amongst their peers. Obviously, that will be the case amongst their teachers. If they need to have an early lunch or an early break so that they're not in those particular areas while the rest of the year group is, that can easily be arranged for them to have an individual lunch in the SLC. So we are prepared to support those students. Obviously, we are aware not everyone is going to be able to follow all the protocols as we set out. There are going to be some exceptions. Just obviously let us know as much as you can what those issues are so we can then support that child. Okay,
thank you. I've got a couple of quick ones that I think I can answer. A question around buses might well be crowded. I'm going to come back onto transport in a minute. But does the school have enough bike racks? Yes, at Westcombe Park we've got a number of bike racks at the back of the playground, so Bikes can be parked there by the children, and they're well out of the reach of anybody from outside during the day. If we get to a point where those are crowded, we have more that we can put out there. I just haven't put them all out there yet. So we've certainly got bike racks, and would encourage children coming to school on a bike, actually. Another question was around school laptops. There's quite a few of Year 9 who received the laptops from school. You may hang on to those for now, because we think they will be useful for doing homework. And I heard Mr. Thomas talk about the fact that books are not going to be marked, but online work will be looked at and will be marked. So hang on to those laptops for now. This may be a question that one or other of you can answer, but there was a question around movement from room to room and which lessons they will have for specialist spaces in, and how we're going to manage that.
Okay, Judith, if you don't mind, I can answer this one. So we have got some specialist rooms which are going to be used, for instance, art and PE. Now, those lessons are not on the same floor as the Year 9s are based. So what will happen is, let's give you a scenario. So if your child has finished science and needs to go to art, your child will be taken from their science lesson by the teacher to line up in their normal place outside. The art room, which may have had a class in it from a different year group, will be cleared, and all the students from that particular floor will get to their lessons before the teacher then comes and picks up the child from Year 9, the students from Year 9, and then takes them to that specialist classroom. So there won't be any occasions where different year groups are passing each other's in the corridors or sharing a classroom at the same time.
And it's worth saying that if there has been a different year group in for instance, art, actually the cleaners are going to dive in between and wipe the surfaces down. So there may well be times when your child comes back and says, well, I had to hang around in the playground for 10 minutes, but actually there's probably a really good reason behind that, which is that we were trying to clean the room ready for them. But we've clearly tried to avoid too much hanging around, but I think we are going to find that. Quick question on instrumental lessons. Yes, I know Mr. Jones is already working really hard to try and get those up and running. There are some new rules around some instruments that you can and can't do, and in the small spaces where instruments are taught, it will present a few challenges, but he is finding ways around that. So we're doing our best to get all the musical instrument lessons up and running as soon as possible. Lockers, Mr. Thomas.
Okay, yes. Unfortunately, Year 9s will not have any lockers this year. The only year group who will have lockers are the sixth form, and it's primarily because the lockers are located on different floors throughout the school, and the feasibility of allocating, there's just not enough lockers on the first floor to allocate to the whole of Year 9, and then we can't say some can have and some can't. So this is where it's really important you ensure that your child has an adequate bag for school that can carry all the equipment that they will need, including their books, to and fro on a day-by-day basis.
Ms. Causer, I think this next question is possibly for you, which is, there's a number of questions that come into this about how the Year 9 form groups have been organised, questions around whether maths, English and science are still going to have ability groupings, and on from that, really, the way in which those children who need additional support are going to receive it. I don't know whether I can throw that one at you, Ms. Causer.
Yes, thank you. All the form groups, basically we've had to amalgamate 8 form groups down into 7 form groups. And this has really been a challenge in itself, but they've also been blocked specifically around their modern foreign language choices. So we have form groups that are based on those group sizes. So if you're teaching, I think there is bar one exception. So for example, there might be a group of French students, or there might be a group of Spanish students, and that's how the groups have been amalgamated for time being. With regards to the setting of the subject, so maths and English are still going to be set, and they will be moving separately into those lessons, into their set classes. and science, I'm not sure about, sorry. I think science is set as well.
Yeah, I would presume that would continue. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not looking to change any of those traditions that we've had. So yes, I would assume that science is going to be set as well. It's just the form groups that I think has probably thrown people today.
Yeah, we are up, I mean, I'm very glad to say that we are up at our full capacity in year 9. So we have every single space allocated. If there are students that have got concerns, I'm more than happy to have a conversation, to have a chat with them, to see if we can work something out. I can't make any promises, but I can certainly have a look at the groupings. If there are any major concerns, we can talk those through, and we can have a look at those classes. I'm more than happy for students to come and see me on Thursday to have those conversations.
Right, and then I think there are also some questions around support for those children who need it. I wondered whether the first one was more about general support that we would normally have given, and then possibly one that might come to you, Luke, which is more about the extra support available for year 9 in terms of targeted interventions and catch up. Do you want to take that one?
Yeah, this is where Ms. Causer and I have worked quite closely over the summer already, and we've already put together a group of students, which letters are going to go out in the next few days, detailing who those students are, to be given that extra support, that mentoring, to get them to where we know they can be. So we've already spent quite a bit of time identifying students who we would like to provide that extra support to.
And then the next stage is going to be looking at where we can get that support from, and we'll be doing that as rapidly as we can. There's been some questions around assessment. Will we be testing them very quickly? What happened to the end of year assessments that some of them did at the end of year 8 online? I think probably you'll be writing to parents with more information. Is that right? Yeah. So we're still trying to work out what the best way is going to be. I'm reluctant to have children back and bombard them with tests, and yet some form of testing, some form of assessment is going to help us to gauge exactly what we've got to do. So we're trying to find a balance and to do that properly. Some practical things. What if, Miss Causer, here we are. What if my child's mask gets broken or lost during the day? What are we going to do about that?
Okay, that's really simple. They just come and tell somebody. We can provide anybody with a mask. I know there were a couple today that did end up getting broken for whatever reason. So we can provide spares. Either we will go and get them, or I'm looking to get a little bit of a pack for the heads of year office. So we've got some readily available, but yeah, we will be able to replace those as and when needed. And people will forget them as well. I'm sure I've walked out the door almost every day this week without remembering to pick up my mask. It's at the last minute. So if a mask is forgotten again, we will be able to help students with that as well.
Yeah, okay. But what I do think is if we have frequent flyers in the room looking for masks, then we might be phoning home to have a little chat. How early can the children arrive?
So the school gates open at 8 AM. So we're going to continue with that. That's been the way it's been for a number of years, and we will continue. However, we expect them to be lined up and ready to be taken by their tutors Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, or be met by their subject teacher on a Wednesday at the specific start times that they've been given. Which
on Thursday is 8:25 for this year group. So we're all going to have to get used to it. Every single year group has got different break times, different lunch times, different start times. We're developing a whole series of posters to put around the school to remind us. Your children have just got to remember what year 9 are doing. Some of the teachers are going to get in a muddle because they've got to remember all the different year groups, and I'm going to be all over the place with this. So we're all going to have to learn our best way around. Ms. Causer, they haven't got planners this year, so we are expecting everyone to understand how to log on to Show My Homework, and we are expecting all the teachers to use Show My Homework. I'm just wondering how we can support some parents who aren't that good at Show My Homework yet to use it effectively.
Yeah, I mean, we have put in newsletters last year about how to get access. Access is actually gained once the students logged in to Show My Homework. I think the parent account can be set up once the student's actually logged in. I will have to have a look into that to see how that works. But I'm fairly sure that once a student's logged in, a parent can set up their accounts via the student account, but I will have to get back to you on that one.
Yeah, I think it might even be the sort of thing we could do a little video tutorial on or something like that at some point.
Yeah, you're correct, Miss, and I think we've got something like that already that we can forward to parents.
Okay.
Yeah.
But one parent did point out that if we are using Show My Homework, then all staff need to use it. I totally agree, and we will be all over that one. I think it is muddling about start and end times. I agree it is. The staggered start and end times are really to try and avoid having 1,100 children descending on Maze Hill and Westcombe Park at the same time and leaving at the same time. But all of these plans we've got are around trying to keep the day as normal as possible for the children. So actually the staggering is only within a kind of 20-minute period of time, and it's the same in the afternoons. We'll make it clear to the children, if we haven't today, I'm not sure, what times they will finish on each afternoon and what times we want them to start. And we'll send that home again to you. But the earliest anyone will finish is at 2 to 3 in the afternoon, and the latest someone will finish is at 3:10. So it's not a big window, but it's just to enable us to move children on a little bit. What we do ask is that you encourage them not to wait at a bus stop to travel 2 stops, but to actually walk that distance. There's an awful lot of gathering of children at the end of the day, and that's exactly what we're all trying to stop, isn't it? We're trying to stop the moments where viruses can be transmitted. So speedy returning home would be incredibly useful. But we'll try and get those times out to you. We'll probably send them out several times. We'll make sure they're up on the website as soon as we can, and we'll do our best to get that all into our heads in the right way for each year group. A couple of quick questions. Library access. The library is on the top floor, which is the year 11 zone, so year 9 will not be going into it, but Miss Allen is determined, as I'm sure none of you will be surprised, to have pop-up libraries. So as soon as we can get the pop-up library going, then your children will have access to that. They'll get their timetables on Thursday. Sorry we couldn't get those out today. We're still sorting out some of the groupings. And I made a decision this afternoon that certainly for the first 10 days, we're not going to do detentions because it's just another complication. We all need to get used to the routines. The DFL will exist, so it doesn't mean that really poor behaviour won't be sanctioned. But just while we get into the habit of homework and we get into the habit of equipment and everything else, I'm prepared to suspend detentions until the 21st of September so that we can all get organised, and we'll review it over the week. That is the end of all those questions that the parents asked. I hope that covers everything. Ms. Causey, you were monitoring the questions as well. I think that's the gist of them, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. There are a few last-minute questions that have come through since we started Q&Aing, but we can try and answer those separately. Okay, so really what I want to do is thank all the parents who've joined us tonight. It's good to have you. I was going to say it's good to see you, but I can't. It's really good to have you with us and to feel that we've been able to use this technology to give you some information. It'd be really good to have some feedback from you as to whether you found this useful. It's being recorded, so those people who weren't able to join us will be able to see it. And of course, you can watch it back with your child if there's things you want to share with them on it. Have you got any final words?
Just that I'm really looking forward to working with your children, and more importantly, working with you, because I think that triangle relationship, school, home, school, parent and child is really, really, really important. So I'm just going to thank you in advance for all your support. Ms. Causey?
Yeah, likewise, just really brilliant to see everybody back in school today. It was like they'd never been away, actually. It was really lovely. Their behaviour has been amazing and really, really fabulous, positive start today. So thank you, everybody, for helping with that.
So, yeah, brilliant. So the bottom line here is if we all work together and we have safety at the top of our heads all the time, then the chances are that we will be in a strong position to remain open and to remain being able to teach your children, which is, as I think no one is questioning, the best way to go forward. So working together, making sure that we understand safety first is really important. And then, as you've heard very, very loudly and clearly, we've got huge ambition for your children and we want them to do really well academically. If we can keep them safe, if we can keep the school open, then we've absolutely got a fantastic chance to offer them. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.